So, what's really going on inside your head when you're all by yourself? Let's dive in and find out. You know this feeling, right? Some days being alone is just what you need. It's peaceful, it's a relief, but other times it can be absolutely crushing. So, what's the difference? What separates that amazing restorative solitude from that painful, gnawing loneliness? Well, the answer, believe it or not, is actually deep inside the wiring of your brain. Okay, first things first, we gotta get our terms straight, because this distinction is absolutely crucial. See, solitude, that's a choice. It's when you decide to be alone, maybe to think things through or just to recharge your batteries. Loneliness, though, that's the total opposite. It's that painful feeling of being isolated when you don't want to be. It's not a choice. So one is like a welcome retreat, and the other feels more like a prison. And this whole push and pull between peace and pain, it's not some new modern problem. Nope. People have been grappling with this for literally centuries. We're talking everyone from ancient desert hermits to today's top psychologists. Take this quote, for example. It comes from the Desert Mothers, some of the very first Christian hermits. And wow, does it nail a key idea here? Solitude isn't really about where you are physically. It's all about what's going on inside your head. You can feel completely, totally alone in a buzzing crowd, right? But you can also be in the middle of nowhere and feel perfectly content, just with the company of your own thoughts. Okay, so if solitude is an internal game, what does the science today tell us about the people who are actually good at it? What's their secret? What do they all have in common? Well, recent studies give us a pretty clear picture. The folks who really thrive when they're alone, first off, they choose it. It's not forced on them. They're also really good at introspection, looking inward. They tend to be optimistic, curious, creative people. And here's a really interesting one. A lot of them had positive experiences with being alone when they were kids. They learned how to entertain themselves, how to be comfortable in their own skin. But it's not just about your personality type. It's also about your mindset, what you're actually trying to get out of that time alone. That turns out to be just as important. Yeah. The key here is that people who get the most out of solitude see it as a space to do something meaningful. It gives them the freedom to just do their own thing at their own speed. It helps them connect with their authentic self without all the outside noise. And it gives them a sense of purpose, whether that's to create something, to reflect, or just to recharge. So all this stuff, introspection, reflection, planning for the future, it all points to this incredible power of our inner world. That constant movie playing in our heads, the one filled with memories, daydreams, and what-ifs that's just always running in the background. And this is where it gets really cool. Because that inner world, it's not just some poetic metaphor. It has an actual physical home in your brain, a network that scientists can literally watch light up. I mean, just think about that for a second. What if we could pinpoint the exact part of your brain that's responsible for your inner monologue, for your very sense of you? Well, we can. It's called the default network. And here's the wild part. Most brain networks fire up when you're focused on a task, right? Like solving a puzzle or catching a ball. But the default network, it gets more active when you're doing, well, nothing at all. When you let your mind wander, that's when this network kicks into high gear. So what's it so busy doing? It's basically the engine for your entire inner life. This network is what lets you daydream, remember your 10th birthday, plan your next vacation, and think about who you are as a person. Remember that quote about living in the crowd of his own thoughts? This is the neuroscience behind that. It's literally the brain's you network. Okay, so if this default network is the headquarters for our inner world, what happens to it when that world feels lonely? And how does that compare to when it feels full of meaning? This is where we get to the real breakthrough. Scientists have now found that those very personal, subjective feelings, loneliness on one hand and a sense of meaning on the other, they actually leave distinct, measurable fingerprints on the wiring of the default network. Okay, let's unpack this because it's a little technical but super important. So, in the brain of someone feeling very lonely, the wiring is described as less modular. Think of it like an open plan office where all the departments are mixed up and shouting at each other. Your inner thought network, the default network, gets all tangled up with the networks that pay attention to the outside world. The result is a brain that's constantly on high alert, scanning the environment for social threats. But
In a brain that feels a high sense of meaning, it's the opposite. The wiring is more modular, like the departments have their own quiet offices. The strongest connections are within your inner world, linking your thoughts to your emotional centers. This is a brain that's wired for deep internal reflection, not for spotting external dangers.
So, to put it simply, loneliness seems to wire your brain to be on guard against the outside world. But a sense of meaning wires your brain for a rich internal life. It's the physical difference between a brain looking out in fear and a brain looking in with purpose. Which, of course, leads us to a really powerful question. If our feelings can literally shape our brain's wiring, can we do anything about it? Can we actually train our brains to strengthen those meaning connections?
In other words, can we get better at focusing inward? Can we practice and cultivate that state of meaningful solitude?
Well, one really fascinating study tried to find out. Researchers brought in two groups of people and hooked them up to this thing called neurofeedback. Basically, it lets you see your own brain activity in real time and try to control it. Now, here's the kicker. The only major difference between the two groups was that one group prayed regularly and the other didn't. And the results were just, wow. The group that prayed often was way better at controlling their own brain signals. So what does that tell us? It suggests that a regular practice, like prayer, something that forces you to turn your attention inward and tune out all the external noise, it basically acts like a workout for your brain. It strengthens those mental muscles you need for inner focus and self-control. And this brings us right back where we started, with those ancient hermits. When you hear a quote like this one from Abba Moses about having to die to his neighbor, he wasn't saying to be a jerk or to hate people. He was talking about a kind of profound mental training. He was describing the discipline of intentionally turning down the volume on the outside world so you can tune in to your inner world and cultivate what he called spiritual integrity, or what we might now call a brain wired for meaning. Which leaves us with a pretty mind-bending final thought. Could it be that these ancient hermits were, in a way, the world's first neurohackers? Is it possible that through sheer force of will and introspection, they were systematically training their own default networks for meaning, hundreds of years before we even had a name for it, let alone the machines to see it?